Now let me show you some of the other things that you can do with Power Query to transform data, such as merging columns and transposing and counting rows and duplicating queries. I want to start with this query here, my Power Query called Sales by Region, and I want to duplicate this query. One way to do that would be to right-click and choose the option Duplicate about halfway down this list. Another way would just to be go copy, Control C, and paste. That would duplicate that query as well. Or another way is to go to the Home tab in the ribbon and choose the Manage button, and that'll also allow you to duplicate a query and make an exact identical query that you can then manipulate. So it's quite handy to be able to make duplicates of some of your queries. I'm just going to go with this duplicate option, and there's my duplicate there. I now want to rename this query. Again, I could right click and choose rename, but I'm just going to press F2 because that's my favorite. I want to call it regional sales. And I simply press enter. Now, one of the things I want to show you is how you can reverse rows. To reverse rows means to put whakatane from being the last row to being the first row. And so this is on the Transform tab in your ribbon. And this is the Reverse Rows button here in the table group. So if I choose Reverse Rows, I see whakatane at the top and Auckland at the bottom. And if I reverse rows again, it does it the other way round. And I'm simply going to delete those steps. Delete that one and delete that one. So reverse rows is not sorting, it's just reversing. That's an option. Now the next thing I want to do is look at how I can merge columns. So for example, I want to merge the region and the year. So I select both columns using either the Shift key or the Control key. And on the Transform tab in the ribbon, you have the option to merge columns. It's over here. And so concatenate, merge, join, they're all the same word. I'm going to click that button and this comes up. Now I have the option to choose what separator I would like to put between the actual region and the year. So when it merges those two together, do you want to put a colon between them or a comma between them or an equals or some sort of custom delimiter or separator, I should say. So I'm just going to go for a space. And then it asks me here, what do you want to call that column? So I'm going to call this column region and year. Now, because I've chosen the Transform tab in the ribbon and not the Add Column tab, it's going to replace these two columns with a new merged column called region and year. It'll transform it. Whereas if I'd chosen the Add Column tab in the ribbon, it would create another column and keep these two called region and year. So I'm going to go OK, and I lose my region and year columns because I went for transform, and instead I now acquire a new column which is merged together the region and the year. Whereas if I'd actually gone to add column and then gone merge columns, I would have created an extra column. But because I went transform and merge columns, I actually ended up losing the region and the year columns. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you how you can transpose rows and columns. This is a list at the moment, and so it's very, very much a vertical list with 33 rows. If I want to pivot this, well, I don't know if that's a good choice of words because it has other meanings. If I want to transpose this, then I'm going to actually go to this transpose button. Transpose basically treats rows as columns and columns as rows. So if I click that, I end up with 33 columns instead of 33 rows. It's flipped it onto its side, so to speak. So that's what the transpose does. It's more likely that if you get data in this form, that you'd transpose it into this form rather than the other way around. But that's what the transpose button does. And I'm just going to get rid of transpose and transpose so it goes back to normal. Okay. I'd like to now create another query that references a query. So I am going to click on the sales by region query, and I'm going to go to the Home tab where I use the Manage button to duplicate. That's also where you can delete, though I just probably hit the delete key. I want to do this. I want to create a new query that references the sales by region query. So if the sales by region query updates, refreshes and updates, and the data changes, that will immediately affect this new one that references back to it. So I hit that option there. And here is my query that references back to the original sales by region. And what I might do is decide that I want to rename this. So I'm going to press F2 and call it total sales figure. So I just need a single figure, which is the total sales. And so I just need a count that there were 33. And so on the transform, I wanted to show you this button, return the number of rows in this table. So if I click that, I end up with a single result, 33. And so that has just counted the rows in that query that reference back to the earlier query. So some of the buttons that you can use in Power Query.